It's high noon.
Welcome to episode number 25 of Foul Play. That is Fantasy Overwatch League Play. I am your host, DeathBlow, joined as always by Asmith. How you doing today, my friend?
I am so good, man. And so good.
As is relatively common whenever he's feeling up to it, being joined by the Blevins this week. How you doing today, my friend?
Doing well.
You've been... nothing happened since, 10 minutes ago when we stopped recording our previous show? No, all right.
I haven't even moved. Although I have taken 2 naps since then.
Well, I saw one of them when I switched to the other Discord call. It was fun. But week 2 is in the books here, guys. It was another crazy week of upsets and surprise performances. The fantasy world was by no means immune to these craziness and these odd performances. So we're going to do our best to try to make sense of it all for you and get you guys ready for your week 3 matchups that are coming up with a quickness here, just a couple days away. So usually this is the part of the show where we'd be talking about how we did in our expert leagues for you guys. We like to try to keep you up to date. However, the platform had a bit of an issue with the script. I know I'm not a programmer either. I barely know what I'm saying. With the script that keeps track of points and updates the leaderboard. So that's going to be getting updated. Your matchups, if you looked earlier in the week, not official. Check back tomorrow and you should see the correct outcome there. Unfortunately, I can tell you I did get cool matted pretty hard in the Foul Play Experts League. I ran the numbers, did the math myself to know that I will be falling to Blaze and Bob there, but I think I'm okay in the other league. But we'll catch you guys up on 2 weeks worth of those when we have definitive results next week. And we're going to jump things straight into it here. And we're going to be going with the leaders and feeders from week number 2. Hey, Smith, talk to me about a support leader from this week that impressed you.
Look, I might kick it off with the number 1 overall support. I'm going to go with Aid. Look, Aid was amazing.
Hey, Smith, you're fired. You are fired. We had 2 people.
I had to take your thunder.
You are not talking about the Dallas Fuel even once this episode, if I, as a host, have anything to say about it. Go ahead with your Aid conversation, hey, Smith. Yeah. We're fighting.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry at all. Come on. Aid is amazing right now. Dude is popping off. Look, number 1 overall in combined, 417.95 points. Number 2 in best with that's not right. Number 1 in best.
Yeah. No, he's number 2 in best and number 1 in combined.
Yeah.
Number 1 in best, number 2 in combined. That's correct.
Okay.
He had 2 really good games.
Yeah, so 248.51 points. Dude, look, Aid is insane right now, but hold on, because Neko's coming back. Look, we'll see. Aid, I surely believe he's still going to play, and he was by far, I would say, the best player on that team right now. He looked amazing. He looked incredible. Everything Aid was doing was, well, it wasn't Aid's, but it was good. So... right now, but we'll see, because be expected for a change. Go ahead.
I'll take the next one here. Izzyaki is proving to be a pretty big beast in his own right here with another very, very good performance. He comes in with 412 in the combined and 248 in the best game format. The team is struggling too. That's what's honestly to me terrifying. They're very competitive in all their games, which is definitely helping him. But I think he's proving to be mechanically one of the better Zenyatta players, at least to enter in from the expansion teams. But I think honestly, if you stack him up against a lot of the guys that were here before, like your Shaz's and your Jonax, I'm not willing to say he's better or anything like that, but he's definitely on their level and on the same tier. So if you took a bit of a gamble and drafted Izzyaki, it's definitely paying off for you. Blevins, who's the third leader here?
Yeah, third one here is Twilight. While not the absolute unit that 8 is, had to get it.
No one is.
No one is. Didn't quite make what I think we can now coin as the 400 club. Last year it was the 300 club, but with the combined format, I think 400 club is more apt here. But 371.19 in combined, 212.26 in best. Really strong. And if I remember correctly, the Vancouver players didn't really pop off that much in terms of fantasy points last week. I think they were fine, but not huge. So it's nice to see them really Twilight really kind of pop off here. And right now, although it's still early in the season, Vancouver is looking like a top tier team, able to contend with any other team in the league. So it's nice that we're starting to see some actual fantasy point generation out of these wins that they're getting.
Definitely. Yeah, last week they had a very lopsided performance. That's something we'll be talking about very, very soon. Lopsided performances find you on the opposite list here, not the leaders list, but the feeders. Moving into the DPS section, Blevins, don't worry, there's enough for us to share. I'm going to start first here with Ivy. He was the number one DPS player, 386.83 in the combined format, 227.94 in the best format. Listen, the Toronto players are on average, like per game, the highest scoring team for fantasy points. That's not a joke. It's not a drill. That's the world we're living in, and we all need to adapt to it. Neko's coming in. They're only getting stronger. Invest, trade now. These are trade targets, guys. Go get your Toronto Defiant players. It's unclear how good they're going to be once they get to full strength. But even if it gets really, really good, like this isn't a team with a ton of options for play time. These are kind of low risk owns. So I'm really, really trying to get my hands on any Toronto players I can right now. Speaking of Toronto players, Blevins, we got one more here.
Yeah, Stellar coming up in second place, 353.13 in combined, 215 in the best format. I mean, a DPS player performing better than one of the support players for Vancouver. Huge, honestly, seeing that happen. Like you said, Toronto in a really good spot. I mean, even when they lost to Atlanta, they're still scrappy. They're still acquiring points. It doesn't seem like they're the type of team that's going to get blown out very often. And like you said, this week they do have a bit of a hard week. At least half of the week is hard, but they're getting upgraded with Neko. So only expect more from Toronto moving forward.
Yeah. And Asmith, wrap up the DPS leaders here.
All right. Third one is Seo Min-soo. Sun Min-soo? Who we are going to who we are going to lovingly refer to as SMS. Hey, I like it. All right, kind of like a text message. Kicked off with third in combined with 346.61 and sixth in best at 203.53. He doesn't. If I recall, he's not playing every single map either. I believe Stitch came in and played a map for him, which is just crazy that he's pretty much their primary Zarya player and he is popping off. But I do think he's definitely meta dependent. So I would be wary right now of where Sun Min-soo is. You might be able to trade high on him.
Yeah, use him for another week or two and get rid of him, according to Asmith. That'll bring us into our tank conversation here. Blevins, why don't you start us off? I don't think you started us yet.
We sure haven't. I'm going to go right for the gut here, or right for the throat here.
Just a sleeper pick of all sleeper picks.
Sleeper pick.
Who could have seen it coming?
Pick. I don't know. Apparently me. Big brain Blevins. That's what they call me.
Your mom doesn't count.
Number one. My mom has never once said that. Why would my mom call me? Never mind. Number one overall tank, 312 with combined 184.12 in best, which is good for first place overall with tanks. Okay, I'll say it here. Maybe I was a little overzealous with my sleeper pick here with Envy. But guess what? Brought it home, got the W. That's all that matters at the end. That's what Shanghai is saying. They don't care that Fusions wasn't there. They brought home the W. History was made, as they say. But yeah, I mean, the same story of Toronto players being fantasy point magnets continues on across all of their positions.
And ironically, the Toronto Defiant are 2-1, and that's kind of part of the reason why they're producing statistically here for fantasy. And on the other end of that coin, we've got the 0-3 Los Angeles Valiant represent. Both of their tanks are represented here. I'll take Envy here. Asmith, 312 points in combined.
No, Envy is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. Fate. I will never.
Old,
it doesn't matter how many times you change. All right, so Fate's not here, guys, but Space sure is. He had 295.67 points in the combined format, 181.7. That's good for third and second, respectively. Space is just he's that good. They don't need to win. One thing I will say about the Valiant is they're competitive in their games. That's why you're seeing Izzyaki and you're seeing Space here, and that's why. We're going to be talking about another team very near and dear to my heart in the feeders section. Wasn't even a bad week for them. Just the way it works out, you need these games to be close in order to be at the top of the scoring list. And Space has at least gotten that, even if the team hasn't gotten wins. Asmith, wrap up the tanks for us.
I'm going to take a tank that I was super, super high on going into the season, and week 1 he didn't perform super well, but week 2 he came up strong. That's Janu, the flex tank for the Vancouver Titans. Dude, put 308 points and then 171. That's best. That's good for second and fifth, respectively. Guy is just a beast on this off tank, and as we see Vancouver continue to be strong, I think he is their option, and he's going to play a lot, and he is going to get a lot of points. He's going to kind of remind me of what Mecco was last year. A strong player, strong team, only player on that position.
Yeah, he's definitely a strong candidate going forward, and shout outs to Slime for all those big brain boops to just get that much more damage and eliminations out of every single bomb Janu threw. So far, it's a small sample size, but everybody that joins the league that has double J at the start of their name turns out to be pretty darn good.
And double D.
I'm going in as JJ Andrew Asmith.
All right, that was a terrible name. Don't do that. But we'll be talking about the feeders here. That is, we're going to start in support. I'm going to just lead us off every time and just rip the Band-Aid off and talk about the Houston Outlaw that's represented in every single one of these categories. Raucus, 211 points. He was 17th in the best format, 124 in the... Oh, nope, I got it backwards. 211, 17th in combined. 124 and 28th place among supports in the best format. Not much of a takeaway here for me, honestly. Houston redeemed themselves a little bit this week, brought themselves back into the conversation to be among the mid-tier teams. It's part of the huge headache that's going on and everybody trying to figure everything out. This was a matter of they got easy clapped by New York, and like one map in total was competitive in the Hangzhou Spark matchup when they got the win there. So this was just a matter of the maps. The matchups didn't turn out to be close. I don't think it was very predictable. If you predicted them to do poorly, it was probably because you thought they were going to get bodied in the opposite direction, to be perfectly honest with you. I did play them with confidence and use them this week myself. Unfortunately, I don't have time to be mad at somebody like Raucus because I also started Cool Matt, who didn't play. Rip. Curiously though,
Shadow burned.
Anybody out there with Cool Matt like me, don't get rid of the guy. He showed pretty well in the first week, and if you look at the stat numbers, he is your highest damage per 10 off tank in Overwatch League on the season. So Cool Matt, I do think, returned to form a little bit. He just lacks the flexibility they need to play the Zarya when they need Dante to go over to the Sombra, at least at the same level as Spree. So somebody to hold on to, cut him if you need him, but maybe try to pick him back up again before the stage switches or anything like that happens. I don't think we've seen the last of Cool Matt. Asmith, who is the next feeder for supports?
Look, I'm gonna pick a Ryu Jae Hong. Look, 137.26 on both because he only played one game, but that's 33rd and 23rd in total supports. That is not a startable support. That there are 10 guys in your league. You have to play 20 supports. 23rd, that is not even where you near wanted him because he was probably a top 5 support overall. And and Jaehong and the Seoul Dynasty have looked confusing, to say the least. I still don't know where I'm gonna hold them here, but Jaehong had a rough game, and I think it's very possible he's gonna bounce back, and I think he's still gonna be a startable player, but be wary.
Yeah, in a best format, I don't think Jaehong really hurt you too much. He was 23rd, so he's not in that kind of top 20 where you think this is a startable asset, but he wasn't super far out of it either. I think you were able to get some wins if you had Jaehong. And if it was the best format, I don't think Raucus was particularly bad either. He was 17th, so even in an 8-man league that's one spot out of starting, like that's doing okay, but you definitely expected more from Raucus after the big performance in week 1. And you kind of always expect a little more from Jaehong. Blevins, we got a softball here for support feeders. Why don't you hit this one?
Yeah, well, before I get to that one, I just want to point out one thing about Jaehong this week is, and maybe more broadly about playing players in the best format based on their schedule. They had one match, like we said, it was against the Chengdu Hunters, which at this point, they're kind of a wild card a bit, but Seoul crushed them 4-0. And maybe if you're predicting a 4-0 in either direction, honestly, maybe you don't want to play them, even if it's just in best format. You want to kind of have that option, maybe where there's going to be a closer match. So if you have someone who's playing a 3-2 or a closer match in best format, maybe you want to play them over someone who is going to raffle stomp. But yes, the softball here for the last feeder that we're going to talk about is Boombox. He didn't play. He's sick. This really brings up we don't get good reporting from Overwatch League about players not being in, at least not early enough.
Yeah, they played in the second match too, which was brutal because about map 1 of the first match of the day, 20 minutes after it locked, they send the tweet out hey, he's not going to be playing. Keep an eye on it this week, though, because they're the first match. First one.
So you've got time.
You theoretically have an hour window. If they report it at the same time before their match when they did before, you may get the news on Boombox before the lineups lock. Savvy fantasy owner thing to do is to be very, very active right before the rosters lock and the lineups lock. Get all the last bit of news you possibly can. Like we said, there's not many reporters going on for Overwatch League, at least reputable, reliable ones.
Right.
So it's tough to find, but just monitor the team's Twitter. They like to put out their starting lineups for the day.
Yeah, and it's just I'm not at the point where I'm expecting Overwatch League to be catering towards fantasy owners.
No.
Obviously, we're small. The league is still coming up, but this is the type of organic stuff that keeps the league alive and thriving and growing and being active. This is the type of active stuff where especially in a time where people are I'll just say vocal about the game itself and the meta and toxicity online, fantasy is completely user driven. All the sites are made by just fans of fantasy and fans of Overwatch, not from Overwatch League itself. We're not paid by Blizzard to do this, not
But I would like to.
Oh yeah, I would.
I mean, I'll won't turn.
High Noon Podcast at gmail.com. Nate, just hit us up. We'll do this for you.
Yeah, just let us know. But yeah, give a little bit to fantasy, because I think it's a big thing for the longevity and the legitimacy and growing and organically growing for the league. But
all right, let's move into the DPS feeders for the week. I'm going to keep doing it. Linkser was brutal, 18.89 points in combined, and also in best game format. That's good for your 49th overall DPS player. This was a product of playtime. Similar to Cool Matt, it was very unfortunate and hard to see coming. He actually got the lion's share of the Brig playtime in week 1, so it looked like he was probably safe. But the Outlaws did exactly what they did last season. Bunch of substitutions in week 1, completely stopped substituting at all in the second week. Linkser does get some specific Koth maps when Widowmaker's really big, but Jake was the better Brig overall in the first week, so he's kind of won that job now. Linkser is bench fodder at the moment. He is absolutely coming back. That is not a player you can cut. His skill ceiling is too high. If we get anywhere near a McCree, a hit scan oriented, even in a dive meta, I think with Dante, his Genji will pick up. I think he'll be a really solid player. Do not cut Linkser. Also can't start him the rest of the stage. He's basically stuck on your bench. Asmith, who's the next one?
Next one I've got. I'm looking at Birdring. Oh, man, Birdring just kind of. Well, he did kind of what we expected a little bit. If you saw last season what happened with Birdring, he tapered off and really should have got benched a little bit. And this year the London Spitfire have somebody to replace him, and Birdring got 22.22 points, and both combined and overall, I think he played one map. And he was bad, and he got benched, and we didn't see him again, I think. So Guard was the overall player there, and Guard really looked a whole lot better than Birdring. And is Birdring benchable right now? Is he not just benchable?
Droppable?
Is he droppable? Because I'm right now looking at it.
Some players have to be droppable. I personally think it's fine to drop him. Guard looks solid. Another thing to note about this whole switching dilemma, I think this change really upped Prophet's value going forward. Now he's playing the Diva role for the team, and I think that is not Diva, the Zarya role for the team. That's going to be better for points than Brigitte is. So I think that really upped Prophet's overall value going forward. There was a lot that happened there. All of a sudden, Guard is a potentially startable asset. He's a very good Sombra player. I'm not super sold on his Brig. I might not want to run him out there and play him right away, but I'm definitely trying to pick up Guard, and I'm willing to drop Birdring. Any objections to that, Blevins?
No. I mean, we've talked about this from the beginning. If playtime is an issue, you really can get burned, especially in this case, 22 points. That's a week's loss right there. Like you can lose off of a play like that. And
I lost to 0 points from Cool Matt with 8 on my team.
Right. Exactly. And how the other thing is like, okay, well, if we can also on the flip side expect a 400 point week out of Birdring, okay, maybe that's worth it in some cases.
Yeah.
I don't think we're getting that. The ceiling is way too low. The floor is as low as it gets. I'm perfectly fine. Like Birdring is the type of player that, like, if you can find, well, we'll talk about this in the next section, some of these high quality pickups from the waiver wire or trades, like, yeah, definitely space on your roster to free up.
There you go.
All right, and we've got one more here. Blevins, that's on you.
Yes, we will go with Carpe, 13th overall on the combined format with 255.99, which isn't too bad, but 138.39 in the best format, which is good for 24th. I mean, granted, 13th, 24th, not terrible, but not what you paid for with Carpe, who is almost certainly a first round pick for you, or at very least second. Man, we saw Philly not looking great without Boombox. More so than, like, they crumbled more than a lot of other teams when missing just one player. So it's going 0-2 is definitely not something that I would expect from Philly, especially when they are at full strength. But man, I don't think that this Carpe downturn killed you in the same way that Birdring might have lost you a match, but you're not getting your value out of Carpe. I definitely am not looking to move or trade Carpe, but it just is. It's more of a just unfortunate situation for Carpe owners this week than an actionable one.
There you go.
Had to play the old bad Philly drop real fast.
I was wondering if you had it.
I didn't have it queued up, but I was like opening VLC player and adjusting volume, and like I manually made it happen for that one. Had to work. Yeah, nothing to see with Carpe, guys. He's fine. The team had a weird week with the benching. Don't worry about it. But
just stinks.
Yeah,
just like he is. Don't do anything about it.
Just rough. Moving into tanks, obligatory Outlaws player Muma, 135.27 in combined, 88.51 in best. very specifically, Muma got demolished by Mono against NYXL. One of the more decisive tank battles that we've seen on the season so far. Personally, I think it speaks more to what's changed and what's happened with Mono than what's changed and what's happened with Muma. But nonetheless, definitely cause for a little bit of concern. But we're talking about a main tank player, so he's already probably below, he should be below Spree in your rankings, I think, going forward on a week-to-week basis now that Spree's got his play time locked up. Also, Spree got some time in on Farah as well, so his flexibility showing off a little bit. But this is about Muma and his lackluster performance. Yeah, there was just, I mean, same story as the other ones, right? They won convincingly in one matchup and then lost very, very convincingly in the other matchup. Not a recipe for fantasy success. Asmith, you've got a guy on here. I know you're a big old Rhea Bomb fan.
I am, man. I was a huge Rhea Bomb fan. I'm pretty sure I started him in the Unlimited League.
I think
which
I did
was
too.
my risky pick there, and that burnt me bad, man. Put up 161.47 and 84.36. That's 24th and 36th overall there for the tanks. And boy, man, Spark looked rough. It was weird seeing from first season or week 1 to week 2. So I think Rhea is somebody that I'm going to be concerned about, but I still think he's going to be an option. I think that Hangzhou Spark will probably figure it out here. Definitely had some interesting, maybe it was just the matchup wise, or maybe they all decided to have the flu at the same time, but boy, they looked bad. And I think Rhea will end up being a playable option. It just really hurt, and I think he's going to take a lot less trade value.
Yeah, another guy that kind of in the overall format goes to show why you want to play guys with 2 games, because you like survived in the combined format if you used Rhea, but also a clear demonstration of, like, there are guys out there that had better single game performances than all these tanks put up in the combined. So there is definitely a tightrope to walk in that conversation as well. Blevins, save all of our listeners, both of them, from my rant on our last feeder here for the tank position, and talk to us about Sato.
167.48 on combined, which is good for 22nd. 88.57 on best, which was 33rd. I mean, same story as Carpe, right? Like, they are, and Death, you can cue the clip. They're not good, Philly, right now. That's for sure.
Not too hard, not too soft. Could you say?
Not too hard, maybe a little bit too soft. But yeah, I mean, the only thing to say about Sato is, like, I personally am not a huge fan of picking him up or keeping him, because Philly, play Fraggy, you cowards. Play Fraggy. It's Reinhardt meta. Let's see Fraggy. Get him in here. Like, mix things up. Like, get him in. I want him in.
I'm not always super right, but I'm feeling like I'm getting very close to just proclaiming myself right on Fraggy versus Sato before we even see Fraggy get back in there. But I promised I wouldn't go on the rant.
The worst decision to like, the worst place to plant your flag.
I don't care. I'm doing it. All right, so we're going to talk about some waiver wire pickups here. We're each going to pick out 2 that we like. Smith, I know I said I wasn't going to let you talk about Dallas Fuel players, but I could never advise somebody pick up that one. So let's start with you and make sure you take your Fuel player here, because we don't want him.
Look, I think Zachary right now in this meta he's playing every map. He's putting up average numbers. I think he's not going to be in the feeding column. He's decent. I don't think he's going to pop off and win you matches, but he's not going to lose you matches. Yeah. And sometimes that's what you need. And if you've got players that just kind of suck, I would be very worried. So if you've got a player like Birdring and you see a player like Zachary that hey, I just need a consistent amount of points, even when bad fuel shows up, Zachary still played well and he still got his points. He got his healing, because that's what a Brig does.
I definitely don't disagree with you there. And in fairness, my reason for not liking him is I just don't see the upside. You're not at all wrong about his his kind of safety or his ceiling. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
Low floor, low ceiling, or no, high floor, low ceiling.
Yeah.
So he's a very like middle range player, safe player.
He's a good player to pick up if you found out that you've got a couple of goose eggs on your roster, which I certainly have. Like Taimu, they're like you pick up a Taimu, which is like, oh, maybe he sees play. If you had any of those risky picks that are like, okay, this isn't ever going to pay off, you can fill out a couple of goose eggs with a player like Zachary for sure.
There you go. And why don't y'all pick somebody else?
I'll go with Stellar. He was my, and I just, if for no other reason, then I get to take him away from Blevins, so he doesn't get to talk about him. We'll just pick on him. Listen, sorry, bud, you're an NYXL fan. Too many things go right for you in Overwatch, in the Overwatch world. So you're our punching bag here. It's the way it's got to go. Yeah, listen, Toronto, we talked about it. They have the highest average points per player across the board. This is a guy that flashed a little in the first week when they only had the one matchup, and now after seeing him again with the holes filled, we talked a lot about Toronto. We think they're going to get better. Stellar is going to be a big part of that. I don't think Asher is a big threat to his play time. They're both hit scans, right? Stellar's the kind of more hit scan of the two between him and Ivy.
We're not in a hit scan match.
I know, that's why it's so hard for me to remember. But either way, I don't think, Asher seems to me like he's probably maybe a tracer one trick for this team. I don't see him playing a lot. So even if he does start to eat into Stellar's time, you'll see it coming. It's not going to hurt you over multiple weeks. I don't think it's going to be a split. So I'm fine picking up Stellar here. My other pickup for the week, I'm going to go with Happy from the Charge. Maybe I'm just a sucker for Widowmaker players, but man, if Guangzhou's a viable team, can get into some long sets, some very competitive sets that maybe we didn't think they were going to earlier, then we were too low on a guy like Happy. Just some, I don't know, he's got those PogChamp plays. That's the guys I want to root for in my fantasy. When I'm rooting for my team and they play for a team, I don't care about one way or the other. I just want somebody that's PogChamp, like a Saya player, like an Architect, and now maybe a Happy joins those ranks as well. I'm willing to take a flyer on him for now. Blevins, who are your two?
Yeah, I'm going with Jinmu and Elsa here, both of the Chengdu Hunters. I think Chengdu was a team. Personally, for me, like I wanted to stay away from the expansion teams, especially Chengdu and Guangzhou. I really had no confidence in them going forward, mostly because I just didn't know. I was not as up to date and informed on those teams where they came from before. Now we've kind of got a better idea who they're playing, what they're kind of capable of, and one thing I will say about the Chengdu Hunters is that they seem like, from a fantasy perspective, to be very streaky. They have really high spikes. We saw this week, I believe, Jinmu and Elsa both had $150 plus points, but they also last week when they played against, they both had over 150. Jinmu actually in combined had over 300 points, which is nothing to scoff at. They're not going to be a DPS one they're not going to be first team for you, but they're definitely a good seventh man or even DPS 2 for Jinmu. But the other side of the coin is that even in the win against Guangzhou last week, they ended up winning 3-2, which would be like, oh man, 5 games, a win, that's a lot of points. Didn't really play out that way because some of the maps they had games where they had like 4 kills total, or maps they had like 4 kills total, and it was just like completely destroyed. So I'm not actively necessarily going out for these players to really like replace starters on my team, but maybe like in the same vein of like I said with Zachary, like if you have a couple of goose eggs, like now you at least know who's going to be playing. You've got at least some confidence that they have the capacity to pop off and get you, $150 a pop, at least potentially. So they're a little bit more of a risky pickup, but they are playable for sure.
Yeah, and I think they're good long-term stashes as well when maybe Jikarin gets in and the team levels up a little more, looks even better. I think it could be a potential value to grab them now. Asmith, do you have one more?
Yeah, I do have one more. I really like Fenzi Paris Eternal has looked really, really good this so far. We're all baffled by it, but hey, this stage for sure, Finzi is playing a lot and he's getting good play time. He's getting a lot of fantasy points. I think he's going to really help you out here, and I think he's going to be the starting flex tank just overall the whole season. So everything I look at, I don't think Paris Eternal is as bad as everyone thought they were, and maybe it's just his meta, but I think Finzi is going to be I think he's a tank two, possible French tank 1. And if a lot of people probably didn't think that going into the season, so he may still be on your waiver wire. Yeah,
at least right now he's okay. And the other one we did on our list we didn't get to, but we talked about him earlier, was Guard. Another one. Maybe some of these guys aren't good come stage 2 or stage 3, but for at least right now, they're definitely quality starting assets you can use and rotate around. All right, so now we get into the bulk of the show here, where we go team by team through, talk about the matchups, who they play. Asmith is an overachiever, so he organized our list for us this week. We've got them by division. Blevins, you're going to lead us off. We're going to be talking about the Atlantic Division, and you've got your New York Excelsior here.
Okay. Also, they are in order of how they are ranked per division. I promise.
Wow.
I'm a little OCD.
That's some top tier play here. All right, moving in with the NYXL. They're an interesting one, man, because they're such a good team, but they are not producing points here. We have
too good.
Yeah, they're too good. We have only 2 players that got over $150, which I think is kind of the watermark of what you really want to see, at least in best format, out of a player. Obviously, you got Jonak, who had 180 last week. You're always going to want to play Jonak, but man, I think all of the people who went, I was going to say pack one, pick one, round 1, number 1 overall, are kind of getting a little burned here with the Jonak pick. But obviously you're locked and loaded ready with Jonak. You're locked and loaded ready with Nene, who had 150. Meko, honestly, right on the cusp here, 142. Mono is I would say a flimsy tank 2 here at 104. And I think the fact that we saw Arc at all, even though I think it was only for 1 map, but the fact that we saw Arc at all really kind of lowers my value of Animo as well. Although I guess if you consider that he would have gotten those points, Animo would have been at 140 if you take Arc's points and give him to Animo. I don't know. If we start seeing more Arc, I really don't want to be anywhere near Animo. But I think any of the players on NYXL besides Jonak and Nene are really going to be your number 2s. Libero is also a playable option, but they're like every other player besides those 2 are going to be a number 2, and even those 2 are really close.
For my money this week only, I agree with most of what you're saying. I think Toronto and Seoul give them a good chance to at least be competitive maps, maybe get a little more points than usual. So Mono Meko might unlock a little bit here as far as fantasy playability goes.
Sure.
We'll just alternate through these until one of our teams comes up, and Blevins will never talk about Toronto because I don't know, for some reason I'm mad at you today. But I'm going to talk about Paris here. I think they won matchup this week. They're going against Atlanta. I think they're a team that, listen, I don't want anything to do with Ben Best. You talked about Finzi being a viable option and a pickup worth going after. I think Hip is a really good starter this week in your best format. This map has highly competitive maps and a possible map 5 written all over it for me. So despite only 1 matchup and not another opportunity to maybe overperform or defy expectations, I'm willing to take that chance here if there's somebody that's been performing for you for Paris or doing pretty well in the best format. Go ahead and use them here. I think this is probably, me and Blevins were talking about this one, potential match of the week kind of material here. We would never call something that if we didn't think it had map 5 potential. So I'm looking at this one as a potential win for your best formats, even though it might on paper not look great. Asmith, talk to us about the other side of this matchup.
Look, I'm looking at the other side of the coin here. Atlanta's playing in Paris and only Paris. So, look, DeFran, I'm sorry, I almost called him McFran. So hard. So hard. I should have. McFran here is an obvious starter in best format. Look, the guy pops off every time he plays. Put up 190 points in one match last week, so that's a lot of points for even combined for some DPS. So I think Dufran is a startable option, even in combined if you don't have a lot of offense players there. But best, he is a DPS 1. Other than that, I'm a little worried. I think Erster has not given the points that he should for the skill level he is. And I do worry a little bit about Daco and Pakpo, especially with only one game. They're not going to put up the points in combined. But in best, I honestly think Massa and Dufran are the only two startable players in best. I guess tanks. I guess their tanks are okay, but they're probably tank 2 borderline.
Yeah, I think they're good tank 2s.
Tank 2. Yeah. So, but there you go.
Notably, I think the Atlanta tanks are significantly better than the Paris tanks on an individual basis, whether that lines up and actually means anything here. So I think that gives them kind of an outside chance to have tight games and then good performances for them individually. Might be a recipe.
It's possible.
All right, Blevins, fine. I feel bad. Go ahead.
Oh, I was prepared for Philly, but that's okay. You actually got the long control because I can't be mad, even though I'm not prepared now. No, Toronto, give me everybody, man. Like you said, they have the highest points, on average. I mean, Envy $180, even Yakpung, who was their lowest scorer at the main tank role, 126, like respectable, right? I mean, then you've got Ivy, Stellar, an aid all over 200. Even Roki had more points than most NYXL players. Now, of course, Roki is a thing of the past. I would almost certainly assume Neko is going to be the new hotness. And if you think, okay, Roki, the main support, got 150 points for them, and we're putting Aid, who is actually popped off in that same role that is actually his main role. I'm locked and loaded running Aid, even though he's going to likely be a main support. Neko, obviously, I mean, I think the rust. I'm not buying into him being rusty. Like, lock and load, Neko, probably going to be a top performer. Like, give me any of their players, honestly. Ivy, Stellar, Aid, Neko, Envy, Yakpung. Give me the whole lineup.
For my money, I want to see Aid do it on main support before I trust him, since even the main supports I trust very much so. Granted, they're intermittently scoring well. I think it's very hard to predict which of them is really going to pop off.
But if Roki is getting 159 points, I'm forced to assume that Aid is going to get at least a similar amount of points.
I don't blame you, but to me it lines up with a week where I think Toronto might not be in competitive games. I think they'll probably be competitive within the maps against NYXL, but I think they might beat up on Boston. So in combined, I'm completely fine playing your Yakpungs, your Aids, things like that. In best, I might actually stay away from them because I'm not 100% certain. It's all going to depend on how your roster is built.
Remember, kids, always play your aids.
Gotta play your aids.
Got it in there.
All right, so Philly versus Washington is the next one here while we talk about the Philadelphia team. They play in the very first match of the week, and with just one matchup, man, I am terrified. If you know Boombox is playing, locked and loaded, good to go. That makes him good to play, and honestly that's probably it for me, and I'm including Carpe, ladies and gentlemen. Regardless of how this, okay, so if Boombox is out, I'm playing Carpe and best. If Boombox is in, I don't think I am, because I think they're going to beat up on Washington bad enough that Carpe is going to be kind of on the lower end of scoring, and I would personally rather go for somebody that, like, honestly, maybe even like a Happy or something like that from Guangzhou, who has 2 matchups on the week, has an opportunity to, you know, 2 chances to maybe overperform. I think this is one of the weeks where I don't know that I actually want to play Carpe. Those are very few and far between, but one matchup against what I believe to be right now at least the worst team in the league scares me. We just talked about Houston and how bad they did even in best, and they won convincingly in one of their matches, and they were all bad across the board for fantasy. So thinking they're going to win isn't good enough here. I'm even considering benching Carpe. Bit of a hot take there. You might not be able to get away with it the way you built your lineup, but if you can, it's not crazy. It might feel crazy. You're not crazy. Asmith, what's the next one?
Well, the next one we got is London. They are playing the Gladiators and only the and look, I think both teams have been looking and getting better. The Spitfire look improved with guard and benched Birdering. Birdering is a bench player right now, but I think Prophet in best format is going to be playable. I think this has Game 5 potential. So in best format, I think almost all of your, I think probably all of your London players shy of, yeah, I mean, I'd take all of your London players in best format right now with this matchup.
Well, we have a robot Asmith right now. I hate to cut you off, but I switched our Discord server, so hopefully that helps. Give it another shot.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Sure, sounds good. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sweet. So I said in best format, I'd probably take all of the London players, shy of their main support. Maybe this has game 5 potential. London looks better without Birdering. They look a lot better with guard, and I think an improved team here would go well. But in combined, it looks dicey. Even Prophet. We'll see. I think Prophet. I don't know, man. Prophet has pop-off potential, and I think he still could in one game play as much as people would too. So I think Prophet's even startable in best format with one game.
Combined format, you mean?
Yeah, combined. And Bedozin. I forgot about Bedozin, but yeah, he's definitely up there.
All right. Yeah, I think I'm leaning away from guard for the time being, but I'm always late to want to start new guys if you need them, or if you had a weird spot in your lineup. Certainly worth a roll of the dice. Blevins, I don't want to talk about this team. You do it. Blevins is frozen or stuck. Now I have to talk about the Boston Uprising. Way to go, Blevins. This is why I don't let you talk about Toronto. Okay, so they have matchups against Seoul and Toronto this week. For my money, this means Boston's going to be in some serious trouble. I think Fusion's going into last week was kind of their most startable asset, and unfortunately he's not there. I think you might be able to get away with Blase if you really needed it. It's going to be kind of interesting, though, to see exactly how everything plays out for them. Sorry, we're trying to work through the technical issues. Asmith, tell them to just disconnect from the call and join back up. That should be it, because we're still just fine. But yeah, so it's going to be kind of a rough week for Boston. Aim God is probably always fine, so you can go ahead and use him if you need him. Again, there's 2 matches here, so even though I think they're going to get beat, they've got 2 opportunities to kind of overcome that. And yeah, so players like Aim God are completely fine to use, but otherwise I might take a flyer on Blase. Either you guys got anybody from Boston you really got your eye on with the way the lineup is right now? Note. Where do you put Note?
Tank 2, probably. I'd probably have him as a Tank 2 with 2 matchups. Shy of that, I Aim God.
Yeah. Aim God and Note are squarely in the use them category. Otherwise, it gets a little iffy from there.
I mean, and they're working with right now. I believe they're in talks with getting Fusion's on not a 2-way contract, on a single contract, meaning he would be eligible to play if that contract goes through. So that is a big question mark.
There's also got to be some kind of rules about elevating. I don't know. We need the rule book. But Blevins, you're back. Your favorite bad team. Talk to us.
Yes, the Florida Mayhem. They are here, and I don't know how many of them I want to play. Man, I mean, you actually don't have too bad of stats here. They are actually they're playing against Guangzhou Charge and the Houston Outlaws. I think neither of them are they favored in, but also they have a shot at being close. Is what I'll is as good as I'll give them. I don't think they're certainly not favored in either, but they could be close. And you got BQB to Vic, both with just around $150 in best last week. Hagopin with 139. Everyone else, actually, with the exception of Saya Player, who they don't seem to want to play, has over 100 points last week. So, I mean, in a pinch, I think you can play most of these players. The real question is, are we going to see McGravy come in? And is he in fantasy? I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be playable from I want to play him, or if he's going to be playable from a can I physically play him, because is he in the system? Not sure. Also not sure where he's going to fit in this roster, if he's going to fit. So with that being said, I don't know if I'm already not super happy playing either tank for Florida in Zephyr or Swan, so I'm probably just avoiding them entirely. If I really need to, I'll play BQB to Vic. But I'm maybe and actually probably Hagopin, but I'm not happy to play any of them. They're number 2 at best. But again, like if you have some zeros on your team, maybe pick them up. But I'm not. You're not happy to play any of these players.
Got Hagopin on the team. I think is 2-0 right now. He's been pretty solid so far with 2 cracks at it. I'm always willing to play Hagopin, almost regardless of matchup. But I don't know who's up anymore.
I'll take it.
Yeah, Asmith, go ahead.
Look, we're looking at Washington right now, and good gosh, they look very, very bad. Yeah. I'm just gonna say it. Let's be real, they're the worst team in the league, and I kind of expected it going up. You're welcome, Shargoff. Look, the only player that I see on this team that is a definite start is Guido. Flex supports that play the whole time are always going to be startable, especially in combined format, because look, they've got 2 games and they're playing Philly and San Francisco. If bad Philly shows up and Elk is not eligible and they don't have Boombox, I mean, you might see Fraggy playing support, and I have no idea what's going to happen. But hey, you know what? If that happens, it's going to be a good game, and I think Guido will pop off, and you're going to get some good opportunities. They're also playing San Francisco, and I don't think they're going to stand a chance. I don't think Guido's going to put up the same point totals. He will, but I think Guido's the starting option. Corey is my other question mark. I'm not starting anybody else on their team. Even playing 2, I am very, very, very hesitant to start other people, because I think there are just so many other better options, even in combined format, with them having 2 players.
I will say this: if I find out Boombox isn't there, I'm suddenly pretty interested in Ado. He performed pretty well over 1 game last week, and the team didn't perform very well. He was in the neighborhood of Fleta as far as points are concerned, down by Muma and Jahong and some guys that we were talking about, like feeders. But at the end of the day, that was a bad circumstance, and if all of a sudden this potential opening or window opens up, I might be willing to take a flyer on it, but I don't even want to.
And Corey put up more points than Ado, so that was another thing I would look at.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. There might be some openings there if Boombox is out, with the 2 shots kind of factored in as well. Last here on the list for the Atlantic Division is the Houston Outlaws. Don't use them. not the week. I think they're going to probably beat up Florida a little bit. It might go long. You might be okay. I'd be willing to play Spree and Raucous, I think, if I needed to. I might not want to, like, make a roster move to find a different option for them. I think Spree is a player, if he's not owned, he probably should have been in our waiver wire pickup section now that his play time got so secured, or feels so safe now all of a sudden. But one matchup, potentially one-sided here. I think these are none of the bad maps for Houston to kind of balance things out a little bit, maybe push it into 5. It's definitely in the range of outcomes, an upset and a Florida win or a map 5 here. It's just not anything I would be willing to bet on just based off of what I've seen so far in the map pool. Let's move into the Pacific Division, though. Blevins, I feel like it's been a while since we've heard from you. Lead us off.
Yes, we'll start with the Vancouver Titans, who are in a good spot here in terms of their place in the standings. However, they are only playing one match this week against the LA Valiant, who, for what it's worth, have been putting up decent fights. They went to 5 against NYXL, which is definitely bodes well in terms of going to 5 potentially against Vancouver. So if you're in a best format, maybe looking to play these players. If you're in a combined, I think shy away from almost all of them, certainly. And you're honestly not necessarily going to want to play these guys if you have the option to play a markedly better player over them, or a player that's close but playing 2 matches. But I mean, Xiaominsu, Haxall, Hureg, Slime, Janu, Bumper, like, I'll play them all. I'll take them all gladly. Twilight and Xiaominsu, Haxall, they're easily, I think, number 1 starters for you. The rest of them number 2, all of them having, a $130 or higher, with, Twilight, Xiaominsu, and Haxall having over 175 or closer to, pushing over 200. So you're gonna be perfectly fine playing any of these players in a best format. Now, if they beat up on the Valiant, or I don't think they're gonna get dumpstered by the Valiant. I think that's one of the outcomes that's very unlikely. It's possible that they 4-0 the Valiant, but I think just I against the Valiant specifically, I think it's much more likely to be close, which makes me much more likely to play any of these players. I don't think you're going to have to be too scared playing any of these guys.
Don't disagree with too much there. I just wish Bumper got points for charging off the map. All right. Seoul has matchups this week against the Boston Uprising and the New York Excelsior. This is going to be a hard one for me to really see a very close outcome here for Seoul, so I'm leaning towards their players more in combined than I am in best, which is kind of odd, but way you set up your roster, you probably can't really afford to not play Jae Hong. We talked about how Lucio players are overperforming some of these flex supports, which we didn't necessarily see coming. But at the end of the day, it's very hard to predict who is doing it. So I'd rather just kind of go the safe option and play Jae Hong than try to predict which one of the Lucios is going to pop off and get more boop kills that day or whatever it is. That's really pushing things, in their direction here, making them score a little more than we thought they would. Otherwise, I'm kind of afraid of the new pieces. They've been an inconsistent team. They've been up and down. I'm excited to own Michelle and have him on my team. I'm willing to play him in a best format here if I need to. But I guess the thing about Seoul is here, the 2 games make you kind of need to play him, but I'm not super excited about the matchups that they have for a fantasy perspective. And I won't be surprised if they have a very similar to what Houston had week here this week, with kind of, I mean, we didn't see it coming ahead of time, but Boston week like the Spark were when they showed up to that match, and then the same matchup against New York where I honestly think Seoul's going to get beaten up pretty heavily there. So yeah, it's not the worst possible outlook for Seoul players, but not the best either. Let's see. So who's up next here then?
I got you with Chengdu here. They are playing one match and they're only playing the Shanghai Dragons. Look, Shanghai Dragons look improved, so I think this matchup could be close. It's got potential for Game 5. However, Chengdu has been hot and cold. and I don't know what to fully expect here. I would like to say Kaio is a start in best format. I would like to say that Jinmu is the best as a start in best format, but I can't say that with certainty. And in combined, I don't think it's a viable strategy there. I think staying away from all Chengdu players in a combined format is the way to go this week. Combined, Kaio is a question mark for a flex option.
I'm gonna say this out loud, fully aware of how ridiculous it is. But I think the 1 in 42 Shanghai Dragons are in a class above the 2 in 1 Chengdu Hunters. It doesn't make sense, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. So I'm definitely agreeing with you. I'm trying to stay away from Chengdu as best combined, obviously, or staying away there. But even Kaio probably in combined. Give me a Lucio player. Blevins, hit us up. Next one.
Yeah, we got Hangzhou Spark. They're playing 2 matches here against the LA Gladiators and the San Francisco Shock. Okay, I did remember that correctly. Yeah, I mean, last week they really had underwhelming performances, but these are 2 matches that theoretically could be very close. We talked on the flagship show about these being kind of placement matches, really for all these teams, but in our eyes, could very easily be two game 5s, and both at least potentially winnable by Hangzhou. So really a high potential to be a very high scoring game. With that being said, I do think it's a little bit of a risk because it could flip the other way. I mean, I want to be playing Godsby. I'll play Bazi. I'll take BB as well. Everyone else, man, it's kind of tough. I mean, even in the combined last week when they had 2 matches, I mean, you had Godsby with 226, which is like respectable in combined, but not great. BB with a 190, again, arguably respectable, but I mean, they're getting point totals in combined that are being achieved by like decent, not even good, or I guess pretty good best format players. So I'm weary, but I mean, Godsby, Bazi, and BB are probably playable. The others are very highly questionable, and even those players, I think if you have more consistent options, go for it. But if you're in a position where you think you're being dominated by a team, play some of these players because they could pop off. If you think you're going to lose just outright with your lineup right now, play a couple extra Hangzhou Spark players because they could pop off this week.
Yeah, I almost like them better in best format than I do in combined, despite the 2 matchups.
Yep.
And as far as BB goes, the playtime with Revenge terrifies me. But I'm with you. One more week. Let's see it. Because it does look like he's the better player to me, and I don't know why, but I have some faith in the coaching staff to maybe not this week, but to figure it out. I'm going to take the next team. No, I'm just kidding. Asmith, you can go ahead.
Okay, I was like, man, it's all good. Hey, Dallas over here, Dallas FOWL. They're playing 1 game this week, and they're only playing the Shanghai Dragons. This could be an interesting matchup. This is a weird case of good Dallas, bad Dallas we saw, and if Shanghai is improving, this could be an interesting game that could go to 5. It's very questioning here. OGE played a whole lot better last week than he did week 1, and got a lot more points in a best format. I think OGE and Zachary are definitely playable options here, as well as Unko for sure. But in a combined format, I'm a little leery. I think Unko is there, but I think that's probably it. I would be very, very hesitant. RCK is another option in best format for you. It does have game 5 potential here. So, oh gosh, that's hard. That's tough to stomach. I just said Dallas and Shanghai, the 1 in 41 Shanghai.
1 in 42. Don't sell them
42,
short.
42.
Don't sell them
1
short.
in 40. There was so many. I just keep lost count. So 1 in 42 Shanghai and Dallas FOWL, my team, have game 5 potential, but Shanghai looks better with Gamsu.
Yeah, and OGE looks like maybe vulnerable and potentially exploitable. It really does depend so much with Dallas right now, what their DPS is able to get done. So it's interesting. Gentlemen, we need to pick up the pace quite a bit. The mailbag is going to take a beating. We're probably not going to have time to remember the Bellman this week. For my next one here, it's very quick for me. Guangzhou Charge. They play against Florida. They play against the Valiant. I like them more than I usually do. That said, Shu and Happy are about where I draw my line as far as who I really, really want to play. I would look at Hotba potentially because of the two matchups, the map 5 potential against the Valiant here. I think he's kind of a bit of a sleeper pick. But otherwise, I'm just kind of staying away. They're a little bit up and down, hot and cold, like a lot of other teams are. So I want the players that have proven to do it a little bit more consistently, and right now that's Shu and Happy. Anybody else you guys would want to play from the Charge? All right, Blevins, talk to us about the next one.
We got San Francisco Shock here playing against Hangzhou Spark and Washington Justice. I don't want them in combined format because, like we talked about, probably a domination over Washington. Spark is possibly a game 5 potential, so that's good. Give me Sinatra, give me Architect, give me Violet. Although even Violet is questionable because like he saw play, he did decent, but Sleepy is still looming. Like they could keep switching. So Violet is an asterisk though. When he was in, he performed super mixed play time. I don't really want anything to do with them, but Sinatra and Architect for sure. Violet is an asterisk, and then maybe Moth if you needed a support too.
It's a small sample size, but I'm here to tell you guys, don't be scared of Violet. The man's an animal. He performed like an animal this week. He only had the one chance. It was 227 points.
I'm not afraid of Violet's performance. I'm afraid of Shock not playing him.
Yeah,
mismanaging.
Mismanagement. I'm much more afraid of that than the performance.
I'm just, I don't know. To me, it's like, I don't know. I think they got him because they want to use him. I never had any questions about playtime, and until I see it actually happen, I own him a lot. I paid a lot for him, so I'm in that boat, and I'm just using him. I'm not overthinking it. I'm just the mechanical skill is there. I didn't see anything to scare me in the first week, so until something happens, I'm willing to be hurt. I'm ready to be hurt again. Asmith, who's next?
Next we got Gladiators. They're playing London and Hangzhou. They're playing Spark over there, and I like both of these matchups. I think both of them have game 5 potential. I'm pretty sure I would start every single Gladiators player, including Big Goose. I think all
everyone.
Yep. Ooh, I forgot Roar is coming back.
Nope.
Ooh.
Decay.
Wait. Decay is coming
Decay,
back.
not Roar, Decay. Decay. Their other Korean player. Gosh. Yeah, with Decay coming back, that throws a wrench in things. I don't know how relevant. I mean, that's okay. Starting Sure for War, starting their tanks, starting their supports. Question mark on hydration.
Yeah.
Question mark on Decay.
Yeah.
But I still think they're borderline. Even in combined, even if they split time, I still think they both have high potential because both these games have game 5 potentials.
I'm not playing either of them because I can see a world where hydration doesn't touch the stage again all season, and I can see a world where Decay doesn't touch the stage at all this stage. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm staying away from both of them myself, but it's like you said, I mean, it doesn't even have to be hydration's playtime that Decay eats into, by the way. Surefor's hero pool is so big, and Decay's is pretty big too, from my understanding, that, we don't really know exactly how things are going to shake out there. Surefor, I think, is too much of a point getter where, like, if he's in, even like you said, 3 out of 4 maps, something like that, he's going to be fine. Moving on though, man, I picked him to win twice, and I'm just all about Shanghai, and I don't even want to be here. I don't know how I got here. I don't know.
Shanghai on Shanghai.
I am. I'm not Shanglo, that's for sure. I like the way their matchups set up. None of these are top flight teams. These are matchups that have both of them have map 5 potential to me. So these guys could be absolutely dominant forces this week in your combined scoring format, and they could be very, very good in your best format. I'm thinking like a kind of like a week like Toronto had potentially, if things play out exactly right. Not necessarily predicting them to play out exactly right, but I'm willing to play Luffy. I'm willing to play Diem. I'm willing to play Ding. I'd be willing to play. Are they consistent with their off tank with Gamzu? Trying to remember.
Gamsu's the main tank. You're talking about
Giguri.
Giguri plays split time with who the other guy is. Hang on, I have to pull up his name because I can't think. They split time. It was
Isn't Guardian there?
Youngjin.
Oh, one of their defense players. Okay, that makes, or offense players, I should say. That makes sense. Why? Okay, yeah, because there's three supports there. And Youngjin actually overplayed compared to Giguri in that role this past week. So I'm staying away from the flex tank position completely. I'm trying to stay away from Youngjin as well because it doesn't really make sense in my head. I don't know. We'll have to see exactly how it plays out. I'll tell you, if you combine Giguri's points and Youngjin's points, they did pretty solid last week, but that's not how fantasy works. So I'm staying away for the time being. Luffy, Diem, Ding, all, I think, very, very good assets that might be big performers for you this week. Blevins, one last team.
Last one, LA Valiant playing against Vancouver Titans and Guangzhou Charge. Look, they have, Izzyaki, top performer in the league, a member of the 400 club, easy start, lock and load, give me it all day. Kareev, agilities, and Space. Space had a $180, but the other two had over 200 points. Custa, is he too smart to play this week? I don't know. Maybe I stay away from him because of that. But honestly, with a $150, he's still kind of on that cusp of wanting to definitely play him at support 2. And Fate at 136 is a kind of an iffy tank 2. A decent tank 2, but there are definitely better options for him. But for the most part, you're playing your LA Valiant players. They have 2 map. Maybe not map 5 potential here, but I think that they're potentially close matches here. Vancouver, I guess it's even like we said before, even in the matches that Valiant lost, they're still scoring a lot of points. So I'm good to go with any of those players, even if these end up being blowouts in one way or the other.
Pro tip, Space and Izzyaki, real good players. Okay. Obligatory comment, Ripa is suspended for this week, and then he is off of suspension, so it doesn't really matter to fantasy, except for there's at least one person in the world who thinks Ripa is the best flex support in the world, and we like to joke around about that. So, but moving on, we're going to fire through these sleepers really fast here. Asmith, you won last week with Kaio for support. Who is your support sleeper of the week this week?
Look, last week I took a flex support, and I think I'm going to take another one this week. I don't know if that's cheating or not. Who knows?
Borderline.
Hagopen. I'm taking Hagopen. Florida's got Florida's got borderline good matchups, so I think Hagopen could pop off here.
I definitely let you take Kodak for future reference. That's always okay with me. I'm going to go with Masa. It's just one of those matchups here, right? Like Atlanta has that Paris matchup. If I'm in a best format and I need a support player, something happened. Maybe I drafted Kodak and I really needed him, and now he's splitting time. I think Masa has shown some really high IQ plays so far, and on Lucio, high IQ leads to high impact. A lot of eliminations, things like that have really been helping these guys out. He's one of the supports I want to bet on this week in a best format. Blevins, you got?
Yeah, I got Slime here. Vancouver players have been they performed very well last week. Slime as well is kind of one of the linchpins to their combo, their high 1 million IQ combo alt plays. Getting those Lucio boops to set up those. They're only playing one match against the Valiant, but like we said before, Valiant are probably going to put up a good fight, even if it's a loss for the Valiant. I don't know. I see potential in Slime, and he's pretty low rated right now, so definitely a sleeper in my mind.
Well, Blevins, you get to keep talking because you cheated on the tank sleepers last week. So go ahead.
Easiest envy in my life. I just said it loud and proud. I'm going with Gamsu here. We talked about Shanghai, 2 winnable matches, which is the first time we've ever said that. And Gamsu was in no short part a big part of the win against Boston, and will be certainly a linchpin to potentially winning 1, if not 2 matches this week. Definitely winning against the Dallas Fuel, though.
I'm going to go with Daco. I've already got one Atlanta Reign player here. I love the map 5 potential of that matchup. Again, this is for best, not for combined. So, yeah, I'm going with Daco. I think he's got a chance. I really like the Atlanta tank line specifically against the Paris tank line. I think they're going to chew those guys up, whether that leads to an Atlanta win or not. I think it will lead to high damage and things like that for the tank players for the Atlanta Reign. Asmith, who you got?
Look, I got Rio, Guangzhou Charge tank here. Look, they've got Florida and Valiant. I think that's good potential. I think one of those games is going to go to 5, and I like their opportunity there to rack up the points. Rio was the best performing tank on their team, and I think overall he's got potential to pop off this weekend, and especially in combined format, I would definitely take him.
For DPS, Stellar won the day for me last week, so I'm going to go with Happy this time around. I think it's another very similar player in the same kind of situation that Stellar was as well for me last week. Didn't quite work out for Asmith picking Happy last week. Wasn't too bad either. Very winnable matchups here. A lot of opportunity. It's not the best team, so I don't mind them playing against a Florida. I think that still has some very competitive map potential. I think Happy's a great play, and best with his 2 chances or combined with 2 very winnable matchups, very competitive matchups. I think he's an all-around very good play. Asmith, who do you got?
I got DM. Shanghai Dragons, we just talked about it. They've got map 5 potential in both maps. This Shanghai Dragons player has the potential to pop off. I think it's very possible that he gets 350 points, maybe 400 in combined, and could get over 200 in best. And I think this guy has super high potential with his favorable matchups.
All right.
I will take the last one here. Like I talked with before, I'm going to pick Godsby from the Hangzhou Spark. They just have the chance to pop off this week. 2 very close map 5 potential matches, placement matches for them in my mind. And yeah, just really high potential here for the DPS player from the Hangzhou Spark.
All right, I'm going to hit you guys with a couple rapid-fire mailbag questions here. We'll remember the bellman next week. I apologize, bud. We'll keep your question around. Blevins, does Bird Ring have to go? We kind of answered it already. It's from Darshan Bourne. Yeah.
Yeah, get rid of him. He's an easy spot to free up, and maybe think about picking him back up once we kind of have more of a landscape of what stage 2 is going to look like. But for this, he's a spot that is free uppable.
Yeah, legitimately may never get his job back. A. Smith, what do you do with players like Striker who are waiting for a new meta and now Lynx are now? How do you handle that? That's a question from Fenris A.
I think they are options to start keep on the bench and wait out the meta in best format and combined. It's going to be a whole lot harder to do that. Maybe try to trade in combined, but if it's best, I think you can just stash them on the bench, and there's plenty of playable options in the waiver wire.
All right, so I think that's actually going to wrap things up here. We did go a little bit long with the matchup conversation. So, guys, thank you so much for your mailbag questions. If we didn't get to yours, please don't let that stop you from submitting again in the future. I promise there will be weeks where we don't burn through them so fast. Also, guys, let's just make sure we get on Twitter, where I know Tempo's questions came from, and make sure we get an answer over to him as well. But, yeah, any parting words here as we get ready to let everybody go for their Week 3 matchups?
Toronto, good team. Neko, good player. Adding that is gonna be big for Toronto this week.
And they've already been very big. A. Smith, anything on your way out?
I do have one thing to say. Look, I just played Apex Legends with Thornrain, and let me just say, we played on PC, but guess what I used? I used the old Xbox controller, and I got more kills than Thornrain. I'm gonna hold that over your head, buddy. Love
Shots fired. Maybe we'll have to do like a one-on-one Apex Legends solo drop tournament and for like a Lord bet. I don't know. We'll have to figure something out. But, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our episode number 25 here for Asmith and the Blevins. I am DeathBlow. Make sure you guys check us out on Twitter at HNP_FOWL_play. Also, we've all got our own personal Twitters. Those are linked in the show notes. I'll let you guys get those links from there. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next week.
But he got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world.